How to stop buffering issues anywhere, anytime, instantly. Hey everybody, what's up? So today I'm going to show you how to install Mac apps and games to an external SSD. In my previous SSD video, where I showed you how I upgraded my M1 Mac Mini with 1 TB of storage, some of you had asked if we could install applications on the external SSD or if it was just mainly for storage. So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. So before we get started, let's make the comment section on this video very interactive. So the question of the day is,
Hey, Karen.
Hey Dennis, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
No complaining today. I'm on the road going to pick up some fresh beef.
Oh, good. How's your store coming on the farm?
How's your week been? Oh, it's coming along well. The carpenters have like maybe 1.5 walls left to put up the cedar, and then we should start finishing the walls as well as putting a sealant on the concrete.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Do you want me to bring my egg cartons back when I'm done with them?
Sure, if you will, that would be great. That saves us some money on the packaging side.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got them. I'll bring them over next time I do an order.
Do you have any feedback for me on the eggs or the ground beef? You know, I'm always looking
They
to get
taste
some
great.
feedback.
Yeah, we just ate the ground beef yesterday, I guess it was. It was fantastic. Thought it was really, really great. And the eggs are awesome. I've been eating those, and I'm a fan. I do think you ought to put your logo on the packages, at least on the eggs.
Yeah,
Um,
you would agree with my website guy who says we
yeah,
need to put a stamp on there, and so we will do that.
yeah, you can put a sticker on. It doesn't have to be a big deal. You could just do a sticker with your logo. That would be plenty.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm a fan. I'm not the most, what's the word? Sophisticated taster. I'm a typical guy. It doesn't affect unless it's gone bad. I probably wouldn't even notice. But I did notice that the ground
so we're
beef.
gonna have to refine your taste buds, then, Dennis.
Oh man, I've given up. Elizabeth is the one you want to. I swear to God, she can just taste. I don't even know what she's talking about half the time. She'll go, "Can you taste such and such?" I go, "Hell no." And but yeah, we thought it was really good. And do you have a place for reviews on your website?
I don't think Drew has that turned on yet, or no, actually, I believe he does have that turned on.
Good. I'll go and write a review and
That would
just
be awesome.
say,
I know
I used to be 5'8" and now I'm 6'3". And I used to not be able to dunk it. Now I can after eating this stuff.
there you go. You know how to write a review.
Yeah, absolutely. That'll get some attention, right?
It should.
Yeah.
It really should, especially from the young generation who wants to be taller and stronger.
Yeah. Well, Elizabeth will not buy anything on the internet unless she can read reviews about it. And I
Yeah.
told her, I said, look, half those reviews are fake. She goes, I don't care.
I remember you making that statement on the last Accelerate conversation we had, and you were pointing out that the reviews are, anybody could write those reviews and post it on their website.
Yeah. Well, if you have a quality website, it's difficult to write more than one fake review. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Because unless you're just in the business of doing that and you have to sign up, a whole bunch of accounts. But I think that generally, let me put it this way: enough people believe in it that even if it's bullshit, you still got to do it.
That's true.
So, anyway, that's I'll try to get that done today and get that review done. And it's just two of us here, so we don't go through food as fast as a big family. But we'll get through a few items, I'm pretty sure.
Hey, and I may be going into an area where the signal will go and come, but I promise
No,
you I'll
no.
be here the whole time. I'm
Okay.
still having issues connecting with, I have Slack on my
Yeah.
computer, and I want to say I have it on my phone, and I have one account, but I'm not able to find the Accelerate channel. And when I emailed the Slack support group, they said I have to receive an invitation or I have to request an invitation for the channel.
Okay.
And Brady's been especially
I would just ask Brady. Just ask Brady to set you up. He'll hook you up.
okay.
You know,
Do you know if he'll be on the session today?
I never know.
Okay.
He's still a full-time student, so lots of times he ends up in class or whatever. So, but I'll make sure to tell him that. I think you're in the Slack if I remember right. Let me look real quick. Thought I saw your name on there as a member, but let me just check real quick.
Well, so send me a notice or something. And if I work through something one or two times, usually everything, the pipeline gets cleaned out. But
yeah, I'll.
I know I have not been able to access anything on the Accelerate channel or communicate with anybody. And I really need to go back to the Amazon session and listen to them talk about, their option for purchasing the material or the equipment for $150, because I'd really like to do that before the expiration date.
Yeah, it's on there, so you can get that. And so use the Karen at khfarms.site. Okay, I'm going to invite you right now.
That's correct.
Let's see here, Karen. I'm inviting you to Slack. If I don't know if I'm doing this right or not, I guess we'll find out. khfarms.site and okay. All right, I just sent it to you, so hopefully that'll work.
Okay.
It
I'll
says
check
that you were invited. Okay.
Maybe that'll be the last step. Usually
Hopefully.
you're just one click away from success when it comes to technology.
You're more optimistic than I am. Hey, Keith, welcome.
Surely one click.
I can't hear you, Karen. You're breaking up pretty bad.
Yeah, I'm going to feel bad in here, but I will be in the background for today's session and looking forward to it.
Thank you. See you later. Talk to you later.
All right. Bye.
Hey, Dennis, long time no see.
Keith, imagine finding you in a neighborhood like this. I'm impressed. Let's see here. I'm admitting people, and I'm going to make you the co-host so you can control your stuff. So let me know if you end up seeing the controls on your end. Hopefully you will. So how you doing, Keith, since this morning?
Great. Today, everything just kind of collapsed together. So it's just big stovepipe of meeting on meeting on meeting. So,
oh man, what a pain.
But it's awesome. It's awesome. I'd rather be busy than doodling around.
Yeah. One thing I thought was really interesting today was you had the major donor who created the center learning reality. I thought that was pretty funny, actually. I don't think those professors really understood who he was. It was it kind of cracked me up. They rallied in the end and said, well, you're the only one in the whole university, but for a while there, it sounded like they were minimizing the hell out of what he was doing.
I know. I wasn't sure. Funny was not the first word that came to mind.
It made me laugh. I know Matt pretty well. I was going to follow up with him afterwards. Wait till he hears about grants where the university wants 48% of the grant for overhead. I don't know if I have the heart to tell him about that.
It's 51 now.
Oh, okay. I knew it was a big number. I was trying to be conservative, but that you want to get somebody going, tell them something like that.
Yeah, I spend a lot of time explaining some of that stuff.
Yeah. It's it's funny in our case with Accelerate Rural, we're actually not getting a single thing from ECU in terms of anything, right? It's 100% outside the system because the way it works. But at any rate, it's all fun, and I think people are joining, hopefully. Make sure everyone is muted. Unless they want to, ask a question or something. So we'll give it just a second more here. People are coming on.
Ooh, I look a mess.
Yeah. You look beautiful, Jenny. What are you
Oh,
talking
please.
about?
By the time I get here, I'm in Pilates class and dead when I walk out.
Yeah, you're looking good. So I'm gonna start now. I guess hopefully we have a quorum, as they say. So hello, everybody. Thank you for coming in today and joining us. It's really a pleasure to introduce everybody to my friend and cohort, Keith Wheeler, who will be talking to us today. Keith is, I forget, he's a bigwig at ECU. He has something to do with the Defense Department and, national security. He would tell us, but then he'd have to kill us all. So he'll probably minimize that. But Keith is a Naval Academy graduate, a retired captain in the Navy. He is originally from, is it Manio or Wanchese? I can't remember. Manio.
Manio.
Yeah, and he's an ENC guy to the core. And so today, I don't know what the hell he's going to talk about, but it'll be interesting. And we can, I'm sure there'll be time for questions, but his job really at ECU is to connect large employers, Department of Defense, with the ECU community, the students, the faculty, research, all that kind of good stuff. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my friend Keith, and I'll shut up.
Thanks, Dennis. Great to see everybody. Great to meet you. This is an awesome program that ECU has, and it's wonderful to bring all this cross-pollination together. So since Dennis gave me absolutely no guidance other than you got an hour, which is a brave thing to do for me. You guys just don't know. What I thought I would do is I'll give you a little bit of background on me, just so you get to know me. And then I will share, we could go a few different ways. I've got a slide deck that I promise I won't PowerPoint you to death. What I thought, since everything seems to be so virtual these days. Does somebody have a question? I thought I'd just give you.
These are people are entering. You're going to hear those dings and stuff. It's just more people showing up because they heard you were talking.
And I didn't have a chance to look at everybody's background, but so I'm just going to assume not many folks are all that familiar with the Navy. So I'm going to give you kind of a virtual tour of some of the ships I've been fortunate enough to be stationed on, and as well as a virtual kind of experience of some of the cooler things that we got done as a team on those ships. And then maybe if we get time at the end, talk about some things since I've been back in Eastern North Carolina for about the past 2.5 years. I just retired at the end of 2017 from the Navy. About some things that I'm seeing just as part of what I'm doing now. So I am going to, Dennis said he gave me control. That's a good thing. Also a dangerous thing. I'm going to share my, let's see, let me get the right screen up. Okay, so it says that I'm sharing when you see it come through.
Yes, it's there. No problem.
Okay. All right, so this is, I'm gonna put it in presentation mode just so people can see, but I try not to put, too many small
Keith, you're frozen on my screen. I don't know if others are seeing you, but it's kind of frozen up. Can't hear you anymore.
Yeah, he's frozen on my screen. I thought I was lagging out.
Ditto, oh mine.
Okay.
I just thought he was really still. The town really had to, stand still in the Navy.
I don't know if
It
Keith,
looks like he just left, so he
he's
might
probably
have.
re-logging in, is my guess. Let's see if he does that. Or maybe we just pissed him off and he's like, ah, hell with it.
Dennis, I got your email. Thank you.
Good. I wanted to be sure. I was afraid it didn't come through. Either that, you're so pissed at me that you don't want to talk.
None, not the case at all.
Good.
I've had a bunch of orders go out this week. I'm just overwhelmed and
Good. That's a
I'm
good
gonna
thing.
read over it later this evening.
Great. Well, read it before you go to sleep because you know it'll put you to sleep. It's pretty boring. All right, here comes Keith. Let's see. Hopefully he's back. And let me make him guest host here. Let's see here.
Am I back?
You are. Let me make you co-host again.
All right, just so I got the blue screen of death as soon as I went into screen share, and
Okay.
my computer's rebooting, so I'm on my cell phone.
Oh, okay.
But so
Start tap dancing.
Yeah, tap dancing. You got to have a plan B, right?
Exactly.
We're pivoting.
Yeah, I like it. I like it.
So while this blue screen is working itself out, it's saying it's going to restart for me. So I don't know if I'm at the mercy as far as a slideshow. I guess I'll just start with what I was going to start with, if that's all right, and
Sure.
And see how we can kind of mesh it back together as soon as the PC's up.
Sure.
Okay. So I'm the executive director for the Office of National Security and Industry Initiatives at ECU. It's a new office. It came into creation the day that I got hired. Thankfully, our previous vice chancellor wanted to expand the research portfolio at ECU and knew from his past experience that if you're not trying to tap into DoD pockets when you do research, that you were missing opportunities. And so with my background, almost 28 years in the Navy, about 10 of that up in DC, 3 of that was at Darpa. So my research network was, I hope, one of the compelling things that got me hired.
Could you tell them what DARPA is, Keith? I'm not sure how familiar this group is with DARPA.
Sure. DARPA is the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. So DARPA is an acronym. It was created in the 60s by the president after we were surprised by Sputnik. If everybody knows the story of Sputnik, the Russians, Soviet Union actually put up the satellite, and it was very embarrassing to the United States. And the president said, we will never be strategically surprised like that again, and created DARPA and gave that as the mission statement, to prevent strategic surprise. And over time, since the many decades that it was created, which is just a fascinating story, the mission has kind of evolved because you realize you can't prevent strategic surprise without creating some on your own. And so for about a $3.2-ish billion a year budget, they punch considerably over their weight in the R&D technology development world. DARPA is credited with the early constructs of the internet, the iPhone, GPS, at least scaling of GPS. Technically, it was created by the Navy. But there's a whole list of things you can look at if you Google DARPA to see what they're connected with. Is that good?
Yes, that's perfect. I was muted. in the DC area and in technology circles, DARPA is kind of like, I don't know, a mysterious place where really cool stuff is going on. A lot of it really advanced networking type stuff and communications and just if you Google it or you learn more about it, I think you'll be suitably impressed.
Yeah, it was. I was like a kid in a candy store. I actually went there on a 2-year assignment and got extended to 3 years, which was just awesome. But as Dennis mentioned, I grew up in Manio. My family, both sides of my family, are from the Edenton area. Before that, and I think I'm back to like the early 1800s in Ancestry.com. Back in the Cresswell, Columbia area. Back then, Columbia was known as Alligator Township. So pretty deep roots in Eastern North Carolina. Both my grandparents, both sides of my grandparents worked in the cotton mill area in Edenton. So it's really deep ties. My father, once he graduated from high school, became a highway patrolman, and his first assignment was on the Outer Banks. So that's why I grew up in Manio. Two things Eastern North Carolina gave me. One was the opportunity to go to the North Carolina School of Science and Math in Durham. So about 15 years old, I went there. I don't know if you know about getting accepted there, but it's a very democratic way of doing business. Each county gets a certain number of candidate students, so it's nice in that you have a representative sample of NC citizens. And then from there, the next thing Eastern North Carolina provided me was the nomination to attend the Naval Academy in Annapolis. And you have to be nominated by a congressman or a senator, or of course the president. And so, just talking about, I saw Dennis's advertisement on Instagram about an ENC success story. I don't think about it as Keith Wheeler as the ENC success story. I think about the fact that we have people who like Matt, Chris, who grew up in Eastern North Carolina, people who were successful who came from Eastern North Carolina are, to me, it's a regional success that folks are paying attention, getting people on the right trajectories, get them on the right glide slope with advisors, opportunities like Dennis and the Miller School and the CRISP Center are providing to folks who, may not even have a college education, but want to learn how to get on these proper pathways to start a business, to grow a business, to scale and to make a difference in the region, especially when it comes to jobs. So, and this is where I was really hoping to have some pictures at this point. Let me see if I can force a reboot. So I left the Naval Academy. Well, actually, while I'm at the Naval Academy, people ask me a lot, why did you attend the Naval Academy? And it was to be a fighter pilot. So, and I figured, hey, I would be the best fighter pilot in the world. So I got there, did very well with all my physicals, and my very last physical, I was a quarter of a diopter out of specs in my left eye. Ooh, that's a good sound. Hang on one second. Let me see if this will work, if I can get back up to speed. Any questions while I'm trying to get this going?
Yeah, I think Keith was actually the double for Maverick in the movie Top Gun. But they used digital technology and used a different head. But it was actually Keith flying that thing upside down over the Russians and flipping the bird at the Russian guys and stuff like that. So Keith has had quite a background.
What did they call it? Diplomacy or
Yeah. Yes.
international diplomacy, something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. So we had a guy from Eastern North Carolina flying upside down over Russians. But so what could go wrong, right?
Yeah, if only.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny you use that example because that's like, I think, my first slide. All right, let's see. I'm going to click the link. I think I'm going to be in there pretty quickly.
In other words, he's supersonic and he'll be here in 3 seconds.
I'm on afterburners.
Yeah. Okay. All right, let me admit you. And let's see. Where are you? Okay. So hopefully, can you, all right, good.
All right, I muted my phone.
That sounded like the Russians.
It did. The Russian submarine or something.
Yeah, it did, didn't it?
All right, can I share now? There we
Yeah.
go. All right, here we go. We'll try this one more time. Coming through?
Yes, it is.
All right, perfect. All right, so I did all this.
Wow.
You picked Top Gun, and that's the whole reason I went to the Naval Academy right there.
Fantastic.
But, well, I shouldn't say the only reason. Here's a main reason why anybody who grew up when I did wanted to go to the Naval Academy. Kelly McGillis, right? Just completely infatuated. But but like I was saying, my very last physical exam, my left eye, quarter of a diopter out of specs, and the captain, flight surgeon said, "Oh yeah, you can't fly. You can't be a pilot." So, and that's all I wanted to do. That was my plan A. I had no backup. But you know, when you commit after your 2 years at the Naval Academy to serve, when you graduate, you're going to do something. And so that something looked like this. So this is an oiler out of Norfolk. And I can tell you, when I couldn't fly, I was really, really angry with the Navy. I was going to do my 5 and be done. I was finished. So I picked this out of Norfolk, growing up on the Outer Banks. I'm like, I'm close enough to home where I can get home when I want to, but I'm far enough where people aren't going to be showing up on my doorstep every day. And off I went, you know, thinking 5 years, I'm going to have a plan to transition out, because the Navy's, you know, made me mad and I'm not going to stay in. Well, this first tour, which was about 3 years, completely changed my attitude. So well taken care of. We had a wonderful wardroom. Both captains that I had were just super supportive, career development wise, professional development, all of that, and complete 180 shift on life, really. And I was like, well, I can do this, and I can perform. So you know, that was a big deal for me, coming kind of almost in a depressed state out of the Naval Academy because I couldn't fly, to go to a surface ship and be so optimistic. And they put me on a trajectory like we were talking about, that just continued for, like I said, almost 28 years. Now, this is a really cool ship, and I talked about, you know, some virtual experiences. So it's an underway replenishment ship. So, you know, there aren't any gas stations or Walmarts out in the ocean. So, and we have to have presence of our Navy in the seas around the world 24/7. So how do you sustain that? So you've got to have fuel and stores, and in some cases water, depending on the needs, logistics needs out in the great unknown. So this is an underway replenishment operation. These ships are about 150 feet apart, going about 13 knots, matching course. One of the ship is called the Guide, and the other one matches course relative both forward and aft, as well as distance apart. And you have to maintain a certain distance to keep the tension proper on the cables, et cetera, et cetera. This is about an 8-inch refueling hose, 8-inch diameter, hundreds of gallons, if not thousands a minute. I forget the actual rate. But you can be doing this, especially when you're the oiler. This is the oiler over here on the left-hand side, delivering fuel to the DDG, which I'll talk about a little bit later. Can be dangerous if folks aren't paying attention. Had a collision at sea with a big helicopter carrier about 2 a.m. off of Cape Hatteras one night. It was we were all very lucky that nobody was injured badly. These are double fuel rigs, so this would be like on this ship that someone's standing on taking the pictures, probably an aircraft carrier of sorts. People think, well, aircraft carrier is nuclear. Why do you need to refuel an aircraft carrier? Well, what does it carry, right? Things that burn a lot of jet fuel. And so that's how they refuel their tanks. So this is not fuel to run the nuclear powered ship. It's fuel to keep the planes operational. There's a close up of the probes. These are the probes and these are the receivers. And so you got fuel, but how do you get food? How do you get ice cream for the captain? How do you get, all the things at sea that you need to keep, 300, 400, 500 people operational 24/7. So these are double pallets, just like you would see a pallet in Home Depot getting carried around by a fork truck. They come over 2 at a time. If you're lucky, you'll have a ship with a helicopter, because they can do the same thing. They can pick up 1 or 2 pallets at a time. It goes a lot faster and it's a lot less manpower, but you don't always have that with every underway replenishment. And you got to be able to do it 24/7 whenever needed. So this is a ship that probably just broke away. The person standing here taking the picture, this is the oiler in the foreground, and this is an aircraft carrier on the other side. So these oilers, these replenishment ships are double-sided. They have stations that can deliver on both sides simultaneously. So it can get pretty interesting out there. And I'm gonna play you a quick video of an actual aircraft carrier replenishment. If this doesn't give us a blue screen, I think we'll be good for the rest of this session. Of course, it's going to show me a commercial.
It's really dark on that ship. It's all I can see is a little white circle of light.
Yeah, I think this might be too much technology at once. Skip ad. All right, I'm going to turn the music. Is that coming through?
Yeah.
So this is a replenishment ship over here. The replenishment ship will keep a base course and speed. some 000 at 13 knots, and then the aircraft carrier will maneuver to get in position. It's a very manpower, person power intensive, no offense to the ladies. In fact, the ladies shooting the shot line. The shot line is a very thin kind of parachute cord that gets the initial connection, and then they expand in size as they go. These are physical distance markers that are held in place so that whoever's driving the ships can keep an understanding of what the separation is. This is the view from someone who may be driving. It's a lot of safety precautions, as you can imagine, as far as getting hung up on these lines and things like that. Lots of safety folks. You'll see them in different white hats, etc., trying to keep folks from getting dragged over the side. See the fuel lines going over. There's a double pallet lift.
It's almost like a mobile Costco or something.
That's it. It's a mobile distribution center. So hang on. Let me go back just a second. I wanted to show you, you're going to see appear, I don't know if you can see my cursor or not, on the very right-hand part of the screen. See the helicopter spinning up back here?
Yeah.
On the flight deck. Helo's about to do something. At the same time, the cruiser is coming in on the opposite side of the aircraft carrier. So the aircraft carrier gets in place, does it, they start the operation. Once everything's stable, they call the cruiser up alongside and they come on the starboard side of the, and there's teams on those other delivery stations that get down to business on the starboard side.
Amazing.
But that's just something I like to, I just wanted to show the group because you may not get, it's cool things you may not get to see.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Is that somebody leaving? Didn't like the aircraft carrier, maybe?
No, there's more people coming.
More people joining. Okay. All right. The next ship that I'll talk about is the Donald Cook. This is the DDG. Also, so DDG is a guided missile destroyer. It's an Arleigh Burke destroyer, if you've ever heard that term before. Most of the operations you see these days involving Tomahawk strikes will be DDGs. Every now and then you'll see a cruiser, but the cruiser are an older, that ship that you just saw pull up alongside the opposite side of the oiler was a cruiser.
Excuse me for just a second. I don't mean to interrupt. I just got here and I'm curious. How did we get on my other job? I do the DDGs and those for a contract for the military. So I'm curious how this ties into us. I'm just catching up. I apologize.
Yeah. So Keith is head of a unit at ECU that deals with the DOD and national security. He's a retired captain in the Navy, a Naval Academy graduate. So he's going through some of his experiences as a naval officer and trying to show the group stuff that probably we hadn't seen before.
I do apologize for interrupting. I just wanted to catch up where we were. Thank you for your service. I too am retired military and work contracts for the government too, full time. Trying to get away from that though.
Thanks,
Great
Patrick.
to hear, Patrick. I appreciate it. Yeah, maybe we should chat sometime.
Yeah, Patrick grows microgreens in a greenhouse and sells to restaurants, and he's in Edenton, I believe, Edenton area.
Roper. We're in Roper now.
Okay, I'm right across the river from you. I'm in Bertie County.
Oh, awesome. Yes, later we can hook up.
Yeah. We definitely need to catch up. Let's see. So just one interesting mission that when I was on Donald Cook, I was the executive officer on Donald Cook back in Iraqi freedom. So you remember Saddam Hussein. When we were planning some people call it shock and awe. Some people call it, it was definitely, the official name was Operation Iraqi Freedom. But at some point they got some locator info on Saddam and some of his leaders and said, hey, if we can remove the leadership, then, the rest of the country, they don't want to be under his rule. And mostly Secretary Rumsfeld, and it turned out to be a bad assumption. But we were up here, this is the Mediterranean Sea here, down the Red Sea here, Persian Gulf, Arabian Gulf, depending on who you're talking to is what it would be called. We were supposed to spend our entire deployment up here in the Mediterranean, and all of our missions were planned to go through Turkey and come in from the north. But whether you're paying attention or not, before, this was back in 2003, the Turkish legislature got together and said, no, we don't want any planes flying, no missiles flying, et cetera. And so there was a big kind of urgent need to flush all the Mediterranean ships, at least the Tomahawk shooters, down into the Red Sea. So we ended up being stationed down here in the Red Sea and had to fire across Saudi Arabia. And because we were the furthest ship away and all of the missiles are programmed for simultaneous time on top, just by luck, we were the first ones to fire. And so the CNN folks, we had a photographer and a news person on board, and this is what showed up the next morning. Just so you can experience a Tomahawk shoot. This is not our night, but this is one of our sister ships firing. I'll play this video for you. These are, 1,000-pound warhead, basically a telephone pole coming out of the vertical launch system of a DDG. I believe this video might be USS Porter, which was also a Norfolk DDG. Patrick may have worked on her.
I worked on the Samson, which was out of the West Coast.
Oh, gotcha.
That's just the one Navy ship that we worked on.
Uh-huh. I'm going to turn the sound up for this one.
That is crazy. Keith, how much does each one of those munitions cost?
Little over $1 million.
Oh my God. It's crazy.
The precision and accuracy of the missiles are worth way more than the $1 million that they cost.
Oh, I have no doubt. I mean, I think really, if you actually did throw telephone poles at some of those places, it'd probably work.
What's the difference in a missile and a Scud?
A Scud is a missile. It's a ballistic missile. It's not in the U.S. inventory, but I can show you some missiles towards the end that we would use to intercept a Scud. So If you remember back during that war, Saddam fired Scuds into Israel
Yes.
and maybe one other place, I'm not sure.
Iraq, wasn't it?
It may have been some part of Iraq. I'm not really sure. Maybe Kuwait.
That's what I meant. Not Iraq, Kuwait. Sorry.
Right.
A Scud is a surface-to-surface missile.
A Scud is an offensive missile, like a Tomahawk, and then we have, the Navy has standard missiles. That's the Standard Missile 2, the Standard Missile 3, and the Standard Missile 6. Standard Missile 2 is built to engage aircraft or other incoming missiles that would threaten a ship itself. The Standard Missile 3 would be a missile that would engage a Scud because it's ballistic in nature. It's fairly long range, not intercontinental by any stretch, but medium range ballistic missile. And then a Standard Missile 6 is one of the most advanced missiles where you can actually do a handover electronically from ship to ship for control, depending on geography.
The kitchen where the new boyfriend will unofficially become family. These are the verbal vacation homes waiting for your.
I don't know if somebody has, let me see, might.
Good. Keep going. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I lost audio for a second. I see Dennis talking, but I can't hear him.
Dennis, you're on mute.
Dennis is on mute.
Oh, okay.
The machine just does it to me automatically after listening to me for a while. It just
Got it.
So,
Got it. So this is the next ship I'll talk about. I had command of USS McInerney down in Florida. It's a frigate, one of the older ships in the inventory. I think we've gotten rid of all of them now. One of the cool things that we got to do on McInerney, even though we were one of the oldest, was to bring the Navy's newest autonomous rotorcraft into the inventory. And so we took it out to sea and did its first at-sea autonomous testing. So you can get see a couple of pictures here. This was an article in the the National Interest. And then over here, they had I forget the photographer's name, but some big world-renowned photographer came and set the lighting up, to get the right angles, et cetera. And this is one of my favorite pictures of it. It's called the Fire Scout. It's a VTUAV, vertical takeoff unmanned air vehicle. It captured the silhouette of our aft lookout. So if anybody's ever watched, many, World War II movies with sound-powered phones, if you see hanging on around his chest is a sound-powered phone, which we use to communicate on ships because it is so resilient to damage. You can patch it when you take damage in battle. So we've got this World War II technology, contrasted with the newest unmanned flying vehicle. Whoops, go back. And how are we doing on time here? 20 minutes. Let me play you a video of the robot flying off the coast of Florida. The FAA was a big pain trying to get these missions done because they don't. And I understand there's a certain amount of distrust that you have to have, but Northrop Grumman was all over it. They did a pretty good job handling everything. Yep, another ad, of course. Yes, I am. So this is us bringing it aboard. check and fit in the hangar. This is us leaving Mayport. Everything's pretty manual with those.
Is that being flown by someone or is that being flown
Yes,
by?
the operator is on board the ship. We gutted one of our control rooms and installed a decent amount of equipment so the controller could be on board while we were doing this. Also, when it's operating in close to the ship like this, we almost have, I'll call it a tractor beam for lack of a better word, on each side of the deck house that you just saw that can do a better kind of a high resolution tracking and communication. And it basically just goes through a set procedure once you get it to what's called the perch, which is right off of the stern of the flight deck. And so the benefit to having things like this, you know, the pilots always have to have crew rest. Unless it's an emergency, they can only fly a certain number of hours a day or a week. So there's limitations on the human when you really just want kind of an eye in the sky, get a vertical view of a lot of things that are going on, like you would see here. And you can, if you had two of these, you could keep that eye in the sky out away from the ship. It's a very effective tool to have so you get an understanding of what's going on, especially when you're out there. We do a lot of independent deployments where you'll only have one ship. And so you kind of have to be self-sufficient in monitoring things that are around you. And the next topic I'm going to talk to you about is going to kind of explain why you need to kind of bring all your assets with you. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing this. Maybe. There we go. Whoops. All right. So the other really cool mission that we had, our deployment on McInerney was down to the Eastern Pacific. So down into the Caribbean, through the Panama Canal, to the west coast of basically Panama, Colombia, Ecuador. We did one stop down in Peru. There's a massive drug flow that comes up from those areas. And I think I've got a graphic here. Yeah, so this is a year's worth of non-commercial maritime events from Colombia and Ecuador into Guatemala and Mexico. They could range from what we call go fasts, which are, you know, just anything that you can put an outboard motor on. Most of the time it's multiple outboard motors, and they can go pretty quickly, 50 knots in some cases. And but they don't carry all that much as far as product. Most of these big time cartels are cocaine for the most part, and the go fast can only carry what they can fit in this smaller size boat. The real heavy shipments come through what we call an SPSS, or self-propelled semi-submersible. And so what you see on the left is about 55 feet long. It's got a hull. If you think about some of the older yachts that have a really, really deep hull that have, 10s, 15s of feet draft. And then this picture down on the bottom right is looking into this hold right here. It's one of these two holds. I'm not sure exactly which one.
What is that, kilo?
Each one of these is one bale of cocaine.
God almighty.
For this particular stop, there were 237 bales of cocaine. Each one of these are a suitcase size.
How much is all that worth?
It's hundreds of millions of dollars. It was about 6.5 tons
Jesus.
of cocaine.
What's your distance between the picture before where it was running from Guatemala to Honduras?
So
that one.
I mean, I can't show you the exact track, but it's dark purple.
I can see it. How many miles?
I mean, this is the Galapagos Islands right here.
Uh-huh.
So the Galapagos from Ecuador is hundreds of miles.
Unbelievable.
So you've got hundreds of miles that you've got to transit from land in South America to get around the Galapagos, and then you've got even more hundreds of miles that you've got to go, right? But the great thing from a drug runner's perspective is this is very low to the waterline. This is after we pulled the product out of the vessel, so you can see how the freeboard, how high it is right here. When it was fully laden, it was awash. And so when I talk about having an eye in the sky to be able to monitor things, that's the importance, because you can get heat signatures. This is all fiberglass. It's built in a jungle. When we started, one of the important reasons I share this is when we started this mission, this was my first time kind of being in command on missions like this. And you go and get the briefings and they say, hey, look, these things are built to be scuttled. Don't try to catch it. Don't just let them do their thing. If they see you coming, they've got valves built into the hull where they'll just open the valves to seawater. They'll come up on deck, put their life vest on and say, hey, come save me. And the drugs go to the bottom. There's no proof. There's nothing. And it turns into a search and rescue case. And so I challenge my crew to not think that way, not give up, and see if we can figure out a way to catch one. And this guy it's nicknamed Bigfoot 2 because the only other one that was caught at sea was Bigfoot 1 at the time. It was kind of an accident. So it was a big deal and we didn't get the first one that we went after. Someone went overt early and the group was counter detected, but this one we were able to do the operation by ourselves and remain undetected until our guys stepped aboard, which was it was a long but very exciting night. And thank goodness it was very slick. You can see how calm it was. We're 400 miles off the coast of Guatemala. It's pretty calm out there.
Wow.
This is us towing it into Costa Rica. And this is eventually it got transported somehow to Key West. I really don't know how, maybe on a truck or something. But it's pier side in Key West. It's fully operational. It was a big deal for the crew. The crew we were at a time in their life where they needed a big win, and this was a massive win for them. So this is very exciting, extremely rewarding.
What year was that?
2008.
So are ships like this how a lot of drugs come up?
Yes. We do not interdict, but about, I think 20% is high. I think it's between 10 and 20% that get interdicted. The rest of that dark purple is making its way. And then I don't really know over land how much, gets interdicted. But for the most part, it's not. And it's the U.S. demand that drives it. And these are built to be disposable. With those scuttle valves, once they get to where they're going, they'll provide the load whoever's supposed to be on the receiving end, and they'll just scuttle this guy. Another sad thing is the people that they will coerce to drive these. You know, a lot of times they'll have one kind of henchman who's part of the cartel, but the other 3 people who lived on board, not really volunteers. So,
Ooh.
you know, threats and things like that back home. It's just a terrible situation. But, you know, U.S. demand drives this trade. So it's a fascinating insight that, you know, again, I wanted to share because it's not a strictly Navy thing. This is mostly a Coast Guard mission. But, you know, because, you know, we were asked to go down and be part of it. And it was such a big bust for us. And the Coast Guard was shocked that anybody caught one, frankly. They were in that, you know, pattern of, yeah, don't worry about it. Just get a sample if you can.
JTRF, that's how y'all work together with the Coast Guard. What Coast Guard cutter is it that's behind you there, or behind that one?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, that wasn't my picture. That was after it got to Key West. So there's some other, you know, cool Navy tech. I don't know how much time we have, Dennis. Like 8 minutes. I got some missile videos. I got CWIS video, which is something folks like to watch sometimes. Or if you want, we can talk a little bit about North Carolina and things that I'm seeing, you know, in my new life in Eastern NC.
Yeah, let's talk about North Carolina at the end, and maybe you can send me this slide and I can post it, and they can look at the videos later if that makes sense.
Fair enough. I've shown you some of them anyway. North Carolina. So, you know, in my current role, I'm trying to capitalize on sectors, and biopharma sector is exploding right now, and we're doing a lot of things at ECU to kind of latch on to that thoroughbred. And I think it's going to pay off down. It's already paying off, but it's going to be really beneficial for the region in the future. But, you know, new to me, growing up on the Outer Banks, I didn't pay attention. I thought I knew Eastern North Carolina, you know, family from Edenton. I didn't know Eastern North Carolina. You kind of are in this bubble on the Outer Banks. Lots of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people come from other places and throw money out. And, you know, it funds the best schools in the state, right? Per capita, that's the most spending per student in the state. I think Orange County is a very close second, but not a lot of people know that about Dare County. And now I live in Bertie County, and I'm at the opposite end of that bookshelf, right? I've got it bracketed. This is one of the most impoverished states. And so I start paying attention to Outer Banks might not need ECU's help, but all those other places do. And so how to leverage the vast resources of ECU to help the region. So part of my job, like I said, is to be involved with industry. Most of the time it's larger industry, and not a lot of folks know, at least I didn't really know, that one, agriculture was our state's #1 sector. And a lot of folks don't understand that I've heard anywhere from 60 to 75% of the production is east of I-95, which is Eastern North Carolina, you know, in ECU's front yard. And then these particular crops these are national rankings. These are not state rankings. We're #1 tobacco and sweet potatoes. We're #2 in all of these. #3 in strawberries. 4 and 5. I don't have to read the slide to y'all. But when I start thinking about value add opportunities and how much of this leaves the state, how much of it, you know, doesn't get classified as, you know, what you'd like to see on the shelf at the grocery store, it's left in the field. Are there opportunities with this massive amount of production in the eastern part of North Carolina to do other things? And you start seeing some of that. And I know there's probably some people in this room who are capitalizing on that, but I always like to make this point. and this is really an NC State driven area. ECU doesn't do a lot with agriculture, but when you think about innovation and value add ideas that can build on top of what's already there, I think there could be some powerful things that could happen in the future if we partner in the right way. Next slide is aerospace. This one really took a hit during COVID. Pre-COVID, we were in some interesting discussions about establishing an Eastern North Carolina aerospace consortium. We're still in those discussions. We've just kind of taken a knee because the travel industry was hit so hard, which drove a decrease in plane orders from a big partner like we have at Spirit Aerosystems in Kinston. They're a global aerostructure manufacturer, one of the leading, if they're not number one, they're number two in the world for composite aerostructure manufacturing. Their two main customers are Boeing and Airbus. And they build the Airbus 350, probably 80 to 90% of the fuselage for the Airbus A350, which is a massive plane. They package that up along with some leading wing edge composite work that they do, and they ship it over to Europe for final completion of a completed A350. When you look at the numbers for North Carolina in the aerospace sector, we're number 5 in the nation. We were just number 7 2 years ago. So we're moving in a positive trajectory. The reason we're trying to get this consortium together is we're 21st in labor in the aerospace sector. So we're trying to provide some attention. Eventually, once we get going again with this consortium idea, try to provide some attention to make some improvement on that. If we could do that, we could get up probably in the top 2, I think.
Improvement on what? I didn't hear that.
If we can make progress on 21, that could be a significant lift to get us up in, top 1, 2, or 3, I think, in the country aerospace. Couple that with the fact that just where we are in Eastern North Carolina, a significant DoD footprint, much of that is aerospace related. And then the global transport, which I know folks may have differing opinions, but it is about to explode at the global transport. FRC East, which is right here, is the largest employer east of I-95. They have over 4,000 employees at Cherry Point. At FRC East, which is on Cherry Point. So just at FRC East has Fleet Center East. They have over 4,000 employees. They are, because all the Marine Corps F-35s are going to, on the East Coast, are going to be bed down in at Cherry Point. Their space is a premium. So they're offloading some of their other maintenance, repair and overhaul, MRO capabilities to the global transport in Kinston. So you can see the Huey maintenance facility. The ribbon cutting is 2 days from now. So I'll be in Kinston on Thursday for the ribbon. That's all of the UH-1 Huey maintenance that comes through there now is going to go through the global transport. I won't spend too much time on Draken International. That's a new company that is now in Kinston flying fighter opposing forces against 4th Fighter Wing in Seymour Johnson. And then hopefully, although this kind of got stalled due to COVID, this is an aircraft recycling / upcycling facility. It's going to be a massive hangar at the global transport.
Or just regular jets, M80s and
yep. Just regular jets.
777s.
They would make their last flight into Kinston, and then they would start at one end of this hangar, and as they get through, they get parted out.
Parted.
Yep.
Parts.
Parted out. Yep. Parts. And just massive opportunities for, in fact, I heard one story where a company, there's a sneaker company that was a startup that's using the upholstery from recycled aircraft as part of their shoes, because that stuff is like indestructible. My last segment. Yep, go ahead.
The tax policy, we're rated very high on that. can you speak to what about North Carolina's tax policy, say like beats the heck out of Texas?
I don't know the specifics, but from this report, this is a Price Waterhouse Cooper report. It's available online. I'll send Dennis a link. And for each one of these columns, it spells out the factors that go into their scoring criteria. And so, for tax policy, you'd be able to dig out, the discriminators that and I'm not saying it's 100% correct, but it's what they used. It seemed to be pretty deep though, and pretty all encompassing. Just from, is that a fair answer? I'll get the link to you.
No, that's great. Thank you. I'm sure it's way in the weeds.
It was pretty informative for me because it's like I said, it's a very comprehensive review.
Well, Keith, one thing I just want to jump in here on the Global Trans Park. So I live in Pink Hill, which is about 15 miles from Kinston. And the Global Trans Park is a really giant facility that's been around for a few years and often not well thought of in the Kinston community because the initial promise was so high and a lot of money was spent on infrastructure, roads, buying up properties, et cetera. So it's really nice to see this happening. I think I think the one thing that they ought to consider is getting the word out about what's happening, because I'm not sure it's common knowledge that all this activity is happening there. But it's really good news for all of us that are in business, providing services to these folks, because it's going to grow the audience for your goods and services, by e-commerce and otherwise. So I just wanted to make that observation.
No, I appreciate that. And you're spot on. I know several years ago, it really didn't have a very good reputation at all. It was a bunch of hope and dreams, and nobody was executing on it. Norris Tolson now is the chair on the board. I'm on his board for the Global Trans Park, and what they're doing and what they have in the works is phenomenal. They're really closely controlling how much can get shared, but it is I can't. This is under optimistic what I'm sharing with you today. I'm really excited about what's going to come later on.
Are most of the employees there that work for these aircrafts, are they are they retired military veterans?
Well, there's a mixture for the 90 or so FRC East folks that are going to be that are now working on the Huey MRO. Some are veterans, and some are just Navy civilians. This company, Draken International, if you Google them, it's one of the most interesting companies in the country, because this guy has cornered the market on opposing force training for the Air Force and the Navy, just by buying some foreign aircraft and taking kind of a leap. He's a 30-year-old billionaire, and this is one of his satellite sites. He's got several satellite sites around. Most of them are on Air Force installations or Navy installations, and they fly against, using foreign fighters, they fly against our active duty pilots for different scenarios.
I think the name sounds like it's from a James Bond movie.
I'll see if I can find the link to the article on him. He's a fascinating kid. He really demoralizes me that I'm 53 and not a billionaire yet.
Yeah. Well, you're getting there,
Yeah, right.
Are those simulators?
No, they're real jets.
No, these are real jets, and they're foreign jets, and he gets them, and basically he took all of that burden from the services, the armed services, which, if the government's doing it, is paying a phenomenal amount to keep those aircraft flying and all the technical aspects and the maintenance all that. He offloaded that and is doing it for, probably pennies on the dollar compared to what the Air Force and the Navy would pay. And is more responsive, probably getting a better product. It's just a great story. And I think he, came up with the idea with some retired pilots in a bar somewhere.
Well, listen, everybody, I'm going to give Keith the option to continue. It's a little bit after 2, so we're beyond our normal start point. So I'll leave it up to Keith and you guys if you want to continue. Unfortunately, I have another thing that I have to go to. I'll leave the Zoom up, and if you all want to keep going, that's great. Keith, anything you want me to share, please send it to me, and I'll be sure the group gets it. This was an outstanding presentation and really fun to learn all the stuff. Thank you very much. But you all continue.
Thank you.
And I'll see everyone tomorrow.
Thanks again, Dennis,
you.
for the invite. I only have one slide if folks want to hang around, maybe 5 minutes max.
Thank you all.
Well, I'll hang around till everybody else takes off because I'll talk military with you.
Yep. So the last sector, and this is really, like I said earlier, the hottest sector going on in the region. If you've never heard of the biopharma crescent, it's Johnston County, Wilson, Nash, Edgecombe, and Pitt. Kind of forms an arc, comes up and then back down to Pitt County. Biopharma crescent has really galvanized the biopharma opportunities for it's mostly manufacturing, not a lot of R&D outside of the Triangle area, mostly manufacturing. And pre-COVID, the North Carolina Biotechnology Center did basically a workforce study. And in the next 5 years, they projected 5,000 new jobs. This is statewide, not necessarily in Eastern North Carolina. 5,000 new jobs with an average salary of $97,500. And so, when you look at the companies that are in the biopharma crescent, you look at and I didn't add it here because it's so new, and I kind of repurposed this slide, but the Thermo Scientific recent announcement with their $500 million expansion in Greenville, 500 new jobs, that wasn't even a part of this study. The COVID impact on the pharma industry was not a part of this study. This is one sector that did extremely well during the pandemic and will do so post-pandemic because folks' eyes have been opened as to, paying attention to stockpiling of vaccines or PPE, making sure you understand where your supply chain is in these areas. There's a big move afoot to make a lot of these things national security concerns. And so keeping track of those ahead of time so that you don't get surprised when the next phase of some virus variant occurs, that you're not dependent on a China or a Europe or vulnerabilities in that way. So there's a huge reshoring focus that's happening. There's a huge national security spotlight that's being put on everything. And it's just really, really energized the biopharma sector, which is great for our region. I talked to the general manager at Thermo Fisher this morning, who is great. She's from, she's an ENC success story. She has 300 job openings just at Thermo Fisher right now. And it's, the discussion we were having, because we're going to do a workshop, kind of a webinar talking about biopharma. The discussion we were having was one of the points someone from Pitt County made said, look, you look across our region and 23% of the Eastern North Carolina citizens are below the poverty line. And I have 300 jobs open at Thermo Fisher, many of which are entry level, don't even require an associate's degree. And we're not filling those opportunities. So one of the things that we are, ECU, North Carolina Biotechnology Center, all the counties that are involved, Pitt Community College and the community colleges that are involved in those counties, we're all talking about these opportunity pathways and using pharma as kind of the unifying focus to say, why aren't we making these connections? Why are not people not falling all over themselves to get into these opportunities? And that's just one company, right? All of these pharma companies need it. Frankly, all the manufacturing companies, aside from the aerospace side, are really, really challenged with workforce availability. So
it's hard to get in rural areas for people to work. Well, I found that in my business, with being in rural.
It is, and transportation a lot of times is if it's not workforce, it's a transportation challenge because of the scale of where folks live and the kind of the commuting distances. Many folks don't even have a car, right? So how can I even get to a community college to get my training or my certificate and things like that? One of the things that ECU just won a big Golden Leaf grant, $1.9 million Golden Leaf grant, and it's partnering with these 5 counties, really partnering with the community colleges in each of those 5 biopharma crescent counties. And the thing that Golden Leaf kept hitting us over the head with was get to them where they are. Don't make them come to Greenville. If they want to come to Greenville, great, you've got them on a pathway. But use the technology that is available today. And that's another discussion we had with Thermo Fisher. She's describing using the Microsoft HoloLens, and it doesn't matter if a kid is in Nash County, they get the same training that an ECU student would get, a Thermo Fisher employee would get going to the next level, or any of the other companies that are in the region. And so we're going to use that grant to make these remote, reach them where they are capabilities a reality. And so that'd be huge. Because this is exciting. This is when you talk about lifting all boats in the region, maybe not all of them, but a substantial number of them. If we can extend our reach further than just like a Pitt County or a Johnston County. Johnston County does this pretty well as well. But that's, I think that's my last slide. Yep. Any questions?
No, that was great. Thank you. I worked on airplanes for 21 years. That's why I was interested.
Wow.
Yeah. Not the most
I appreciate
feminine.
y'all's time and your questions.
I beg your pardon?
I appreciate everybody's time. I hate that we ran over. I know y'all are all busy.
Well, I apologize for getting in here late, and I missed what your introduction and what you were going to be talking about to this group. However,
well, that's your fearless leader Dennis's fault, because he said, "Hey, I want you to talk about you growing up in Eastern North Carolina, your experience in the Navy, and then whatever else you want to talk about." So this was all made up just based on that, very, very vague guidance from our fearless leader.
It's so hard for a military person not to tell sea stories. So it's a lot of experiences out there.
I told a few sea stories, but I've got 100 others where those came from, and I try not to be too much on the sea story side, but I do like to expose people to the Navy. Phenomenal things that the people are doing out there that a lot of folks don't get a chance to see. And, but I try to do it sparingly. I hope none of this came across as my accomplishments, because like I was saying at the beginning, I got here because Eastern North Carolina paid attention to whatever it was they saw and kept pushing me in certain directions. I tried to do those same things for all my teammates and sailors, sometimes Marines that I was fortunate enough to serve with.
Well, thank you so much.
You said you grew up on the Outer Banks. Well, I didn't exactly grow up on the Outer Banks, but I'm not far from it. I spent once I got driver's license, I spent most of my life down there, even though I lived in Roper. and you're not much older than me, so I'm kind of curious. I mean, did you graduated from down there and then went on to what college and where? And
So I actually,
Thank you.
I mentioned at the beginning that you might have missed. Both sides of my family are from Edenton, and when you track back even earlier than that, got a lot closer to Roper because it was Columbia and Crestwell was kind of the early 1800s or so, where at least as far back as I'm able to track them, even to Alligator Township, which some people never even heard of Alligator Township.
my family comes out of Gum Neck, so if you think
you
Alligator Township's small, that's
Yep. And then, so my father was a highway patrolman and left, his first assignment was on the Outer Banks. And so that's what took us out there when I was probably about 3 years old. And then I grew up there. I went to I went to Manio High School or Manio school system up until or through my sophomore year, and then went to the School of Science and Math in Durham for my junior and senior year. And then from there to the Naval Academy.
Oh, congratulations on that. That's not an easy feat to get into.
Well, that was one of the things I mentioned, to give credit for, all the people who have supported me in the things that I've been able to accomplish on their shoulders, so to speak. You have to have a nomination from a congressman or a senator to even be considered. And that's another thing Eastern North Carolina provided for me.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I'm not exactly sure what you're doing over at ECU and how much you have to do with the military still, but I retired in 2011 and I started my own business only about 4 years ago, but I've worked contract work since then for the Navy, currently working contract for the Army, for a company out of New Orleans. So I don't know, do you still have anything to do with the military, or is what you're working on kind of separate from that?
So my office was created basically when I arrived, which was awesome. And it's the Office of National Security and Industry Initiatives. So it encompasses a lot of things, right? National security nowadays obviously deals with DOD, the military, but you could have an economics angle or a social media angle that is directly applicable to national security. And that's why I picked that name for my office, because my time at Darpa told me, you could have some computer whiz that's solving or creating some new capability that is directly applicable to the National Security Agency. And if you say, oh, well, I just deal with military things, in today's world, you're going to miss out on potential solutions to problems that you don't want to solve every problem with a kinetic answer, right? You don't want to blow everything up. You can't do that in today's world. So outthinking people, outthinking other countries and nation states, you got to keep your pulse on technologies that are going on in the university. I spend a lot of time doing that. I connect I connect faculty and students to several of the Navy, Marine Corps, Air Force organizations that are in our region. Sometimes it's connecting folks up to DC, depending on what the topic might be. We have our Brody School of Medicine does phenomenal work, much of which is involving DOD. So yeah, I spent a lot of time meeting with DOD folks. I'm about this far from having an MOU signed with SOCOM down in Tampa, Florida, to give us some early access to some of their needs, to see what our R&D folks can do for them. And SOCOM has deep pockets, so that's a good buddy to be saddled up next to.
It'd be really good come into the fiscal year.
Well, I think that, funny you say that, I think that's one of the reasons they're reaching out. I don't I don't think their burn rate in the current fiscal year is as high a burn rate as they would like. And, they said, hey, what can you do? But before we talk, let's get this agreement signed.
Yeah. Well, at least it's an agreement and not a contract, because you don't want to have to go through that whole contract process to compete with other schools or any other R&D centers.
No, it is a contract, but it's an IDIQ contract. So, that's about as slick and flexible and agile as you can get.
Yep. Well, I would like to invite you to stop by anytime that you happen to be down towards Roper Way. I work from home, my full-time job, and my personal business is right here at the house. So micro farm.
That's awesome. I'm going to check that out. I love that concept. Have you thought about doing any aquaponics?
I'm actually doing hydroponics. I just had a 30 by 60 greenhouse put up for doing lettuce and loose leaf greens. That's what it's specifically designed for, which if you stop by right now, looks like a complete wreck because we're still trying to clean up from it. But I've got a 2,500 spot hydroponic system, can produce somewhere around about 400 heads of lettuce if it was all just lettuce, but it'd be a mixed bag. So maybe 200 heads of lettuce a week plus other loose greens.
Can you say who your biggest customer is?
Well, let's back up for a minute, because I hadn't even kicked off yet. My business started as a microgreens business. So, high-end restaurants are really hard to find around here. In fact, the only ones I have are actually in Edenton, where I started the business at. The Table Restaurant.
Sell to Waterman's?
No, Waterman's, if they haven't gone out of business, they're getting ready to go out of business. They shut the COVID thing pretty much will shut them down.
That's not good.
But there's 3 restaurants that I deal with right now on a regular basis in Edenton. The Table at the Inner Banks Inn, 309, and the Eden Bay Oyster Bar just opened back up with new ownership. And the owner that's there is she's one of the main chefs that I have worked with since I started my business. She was over at the Table at the time. So that's where I started. Table has been my longest. They were my very first customer. They're still my long-standing customer. But I have expanded from the few restaurants that I have there to the farmers market in Edenton. You find me there every Saturday morning. Unless something keeps me away traveling or whatever. And I'm actually trying to change the Washington County farmers market setup, because my opinion is that it is poorly run. They open in the middle of the day on Friday when everybody's at work. It just does not make sense. They need a Saturday afternoon market or another location. So I'm working on that's going to be a year-long process, because it's a nonprofit setup. There's a lot that goes into it, writing bylaws and everything, and having the official people go, yes, you can do this. But that's something I would like to get done in the next year on top of my current business.
The reason I asked about aquaponics, and I was this close. If I'd had an hour and a half, I'd have put a couple more slides in. And it's a trend that I saw when I first got here, and I started looking at kind of global demand. And it's really it talks more about food, but it's really about protein and the global demand of. I'll just talk about seafood, because it's easy to talk about, because you got farm raised and you got wild caught, and wild caught seafood has, and my wife's family had Wanchese Fish Company. They just sold it a few years ago to a company up in Canada, but wild caught is plateaued. It will not go any higher. We're catching as much as we can catch based on what's out there and what government regulations are in place. Farm raised continues
starting to increase,
right? And back in 2015, some say 2014, those curves crossed, And so for the past 5 years at least, the world had, the people, the human population have consumed more farm-raised seafood than wild-caught seafood. And it continues to diverge. And I think there's a huge potential in Eastern North Carolina for it, really anywhere in North Carolina, because you saw trout on that slide, on that agriculture slide, and a lot of that is out in the West. But
the problem with aquaculture though is well, aquaponics. So you have aquaculture and then you have aquaponics. So you have farm raised fish, but to utilize those fish to produce the fertilizer to grow plants, there's a very good connection there, but it's very poorly researched because a lot of people that get into aquaponics turn around and get out of it and either do hydroponics or they do aquaculture. Because the crossover is lacking somewhere.
No, I agree. It's sometimes it seems like it can be overcomplicated. There's a company, I think maybe in Norfolk, Virginia Beach area, that's doing tomatoes and tilapia. And I haven't checked in on them in a year or so, but that was a fascinating concept. And really, I think the way those curves are going, you don't have to do both simultaneously. But I'm convinced there's an opportunity in aquaculture for that protein production, and it's all about feed conversion ratio. When I went up and talked to the CEO, the company that Wan Cheese sold out to was Cook Seafood, which is, like I said, it's up in Canada, but they have their USA headquarters in Suffolk. So I went up and spent some time with a good friend who's from Wan Cheese, who's on there, who's still an employee there, and the CEO, the new Canadian CEO of Cook. And he started talking about feed conversion ratio. I said, hang on, what are you talking about? So that company raises salmon in ocean pens, these big, massive pens that they raise. Salmon's a big fish. They raise them in these pens out in the ocean. It's an incredible operation. He started talking about feed conversion ratio and the fact that he's kind of trying to create his own supply chain vertically. They had just acquired a company in Texas that did like omega. It's almost like an omega-3 vitamin type of thing. I wasn't really sure, but they're constantly focused on feed conversion ratio and driving down the cost of the feed that it takes to get a pound of salmon. And I said, wait, hang on, what are you talking about? And he's like, yeah, feed conversion ratio. I said, look, my brother raises chickens for Purdue. He's got eight houses here in Bertie County. And I can't go over and have dinner with my mother-in-law with him at the table without him going into what his latest feed conversion ratio is, blah, 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 blah. And, he does really well. I'm kind of just poking at him a little bit. He's normally first or second. And, Purdue incentivizes that because the least amount of feed for the most amount of pounds of chicken, that's the golden ratio for that. And the CEO said, yeah, we have more in common. As a seafood company, we have more in common with the Purdue's and the Smithfields of the world than we do with any wild-caught fishery companies. And that's when it clicked. I'm like, man, we got all this water in Eastern North Carolina. But the one of the problems we have, especially, and I know this growing up on the Outer Banks, is there's this stigma, right? One, you're not a man unless you're catching it with a hook, right? Only men go offshore and do all these things in heavy seas and bring back the catch. And, we feed everybody. It's kind of same as a farmer. There's a farmer personality thing there too. I'm around a lot of them, obviously in Bertie County. But if we can get past that stigma of a farm raised fish, I think there could be some opportunity. And I brought that up with him and he said, look, we're a family owned company. We're not, we don't have stock or anything like that. And we're acquiring a lot of different capabilities to build our company. He said, we see that in some of these areas when we go and talk to them about farm raised salmon and we get that initial, farm raised, we just don't get it. We like the traditional pink salmon, caught in the wild, et cetera. He said the ones that come around many times are those fishermen who come to understand that, one, they can stabilize their company, because wild caught, you're at the
This
mercy,
varies.
right? The government can come in and say, you're only catching this many flounder, or you can only fish this many days. And you don't know your business model, building a business plan 5 years out, when the government every year can say, well, this is capped and this is available. And I mean, who would want that headache? He said some of the best growers, salmon growers that they have, started as just regular wild caught fishermen, and they still do that because they love it, but they don't have to stress out about it. And they're the best managers of these farm raised salmon operations.
Well, I have an interest that actually, now that I know that there's somebody like that around here, the problem is that they're going to be dealing mostly with salt to brackish water, which you can't grow plants in. But if they were to do inland and stick to fresh water and figure out how they can grow their fish, and I can use their waste, that would be I mean, I agree that that's a huge possibility there of what could be done, but I don't know I don't even know how to begin trying to figure that one out.
Well, I know some researchers who are interested in this, and you know, the good thing about, like, I like to stick my neck out. It's an educated guess and a lot of times, but I learned a lot at DARPA at observing divergences when they're happening, and it can tell you a lot. They talk about, well, DARPA can predict the future. No, they do their research and they see these divergences happening. And I saw a divergence happening with farm raised and wild caught. And all I'm doing is saying, look, it's coming. Somebody's going to capitalize on this. And why couldn't it be in North Carolina? So I tell this, you know, I share these slides with folks if I think there might be some compelling reason to. And a couple of our researchers at ECU remembered me giving a presentation. I think, Dennis, you were probably there. It's back at one of the big Jay Golden collaboratory extraordinaire, you know, right? Yeah. He loved a big old show. It was like a circus, right? Yeah. And she's like, didn't you do some things on aquaculture, et cetera, et cetera? And she's looking at circular economies. She's a waste treatment water expert. She's looking at circular economies. And, you know, we have aquaculture people and we have, you know, plant people. She's looking at ways to maybe research exactly what you're talking about, that uncertainty of when you mix them together. And I've always thought catfish would be a good fish. I mean, you can grow catfish in a doggone 5-gallon bucket of muddy water, it seems like. And this guy in Aden is doing that. He's got a pretty successful business. He's delivering catfish all the way to New York City alive. Mm. So we've got people in the region who know how to do this. If we could get a researcher with a hydroponics and an aquaculture person, like expert, you guys who are living this dream on both sides of that, we could get a smart researcher together. There could be an interesting partnership.
Find me a researcher.
Well, one of the things that I've been working on, Keith, here with this effort is I've been working with the oyster people quite a bit. Yes. And I've been working with a guy. Well, you know Tom Looney, of course.
I do. I love Tom.
Yeah, Tom has got
you and Tom could be brothers.
That's what we kind of hung out for the last month, and he goes, hell, I feel like I've known you for 20 years, Trot. So we do get along pretty well. But one of the things that really caught my eye with that space, and this is a little bit of a tangent, but right now there's 38 oyster farmers with leases in North Carolina. And this is a fascinating statistic. When you compare North Carolina oyster leases to Maryland and Virginia as states have leased out 95% of their available space. North Carolina, it's only 5%.
Because we limit it to a certain number of acres, right?
I'm not 100% sure. I think it is somewhat bureaucratic. I don't know about the hard limits, but these 38 people that are doing it are a really interesting group of people because almost without exception, they're young. They have master's degree in marine science. A lot of them from Old Dominion or from UNCW. They're leasing 2 to 5 acres, which I guess is enough to make a living. But the point I guess the point I'm trying to make is the wild caught oysters in North Carolina are essentially non-existent. It really does,
Right.
for whatever reason, the hurricanes and the fresh water, blah, blah, blah. So these guys are really it in North Carolina, and arguably in Virginia. South Carolina, I think, has a little bit more wild caught oysters. But the point I'm making is it's the same sort of thing. The demand is increasing, the ability to get to market, no matter where that market is. We've been working with Alibaba in China. I'm trying to put together an exporting package for our class, for people in our class, where they'll be able to actually, Alibaba will build a B2B e-commerce website for our class members and put them into Western Europe, China, et cetera. And they also have the logistics and the back end to help. They're doing it with quite a few Pacific salmon growers and also with Maine lobster guys. They're selling their lobsters in China like crazy. So, I think if we can develop these markets and these pathways to actually sell and make money, I think you'll attract investment, not only from the Cook Seafoods of the world. There's actually a number of companies in that space, not just salmon, but other things. And as people, you're seeing the development of plant-based meats, right? We're seeing plant-based hamburgers, and I saw an article the other day. Somebody's building a giant barbecue plant in Concord that's making plant-based barbecue, which seems
I've tasted that. It's a weird experience.
Yeah. Well, I've had the Beyond Burger, and I'll be damned if I can tell the difference between.
Really?
It's incredible. I mean,
wow.
It cooks up. It looks like it smells like it's. So I don't know. But anyway, I think Keith has said this since the first day I met him. He's talked about the potential for farm-raised seafood. He went down to Miami and saw some guy growing. Wasn't that salmon also down there?
Yeah, I didn't go down there. It's just a thing that popped up on my radar. The Blue House.
Blue House, yeah. I knew it had blue in the name. So I think, Keith, what we ought to do is have you again, and maybe talk about that kind of thing. And maybe we can invite folks from the Rural Center and from the state government, people like that who maybe need to hear about this a little more, because I'm on several boards and this stuff never comes up, and it should really. It's that everyone talks about farming and soybeans and corn. And I got news for you. That's yesterday's news. I'm not trying to minimize it, but lots of other things happening.
Well,
I'm actually on the Farm Bureau's boards for specialty crops. I told you that the other day with Debbie Hamrick, and nobody down. The one guy that used to be in the Roper area that grew an aquaculture type product was crawfish, and Sonny's been out of business now for some time.
Well, we've got someone in this class has taken over all his stuff.
Oh, really?
And they're growing crawfish.
Is that in
Grifton?
No, in Roper. It's on the old mill pond.
Yeah,
somebody's doing
company,
it in Perquimans.
Yeah, this company is in Grifton, and they're in our class. It's NLN, I forget, NLN Seafood or something like that. But she actually raises them, and that guy was her mentor. That guy you just mentioned. Yeah, that's who she learned, and her husband learned, and I think they got some of his stuff that still worked. And that's the first thing she told me about was their relationship with that guy. And they're exporting to Louisiana, which is crazy because that's where most of that stuff is grown. But she was explaining to me that North Carolina has an advantage because they have what are called deep water crawfish, whereas in Louisiana, it's all raised in fields that are irrigated. And so it's
I read an article on that like 2 months ago.
Yeah. So she said they've got a real taste advantage. North Carolina does because got a real deep pond and whatever. So yeah, so there's a little bit of movement in that, and she's a good person to talk to if you ever. I can't think of her name right now, but she's in our class and real quiet, doesn't say much, but she calls me offline and fills me in with what's going on and stuff. So it's good to see.
Well, I don't have the connections that y'all have to some of the people out and about, because I moved back to this little bitty place to get away from everything, right?
Yeah.
and it disconnected me, from a lot of things, that opportunities that are out there. But just like me bringing microgreens to a little bitty rural town, nobody here knows what a microgreen is. They think it's cut out of a ditch bank somewhere. And it's actually more of a superfood than it is a garnish, even though it started as a garnish.
Yeah.
It's slowly coming around, but it's taking people from New Hampshire to move down here to go, oh, there's microgreens down here, and they just freak out, because they know what they are,
Yeah.
as to where they don't around here. But
Yeah.
I'm open to getting in with somebody. There's no way I could do it on my own. I just don't have the knowledge or the connections. But I'm open to new opportunities with it.
Well, one of the things we're trying to do with this program, is really build a network and build relationships. There's really, there's no reason why you can't continue to be involved even after the class ends. It's not that high friction just to get on a Zoom call and listen in, and and the network will become increasingly more valuable, like we're seeing today, as more people get involved, and a lot of people like yourself who came, and including me, came here from an urban area. So to me, it's wide open, and there's lots of things that can be done, and we're going to do everything we can to facilitate that and make that a possibility. So I've got to have to go, guys. Hate to break it up, but Keith,
Well, I got one thing I would like to pass to Keith real quick is you mentioned being in Iraq and in the Gulf in 2003. I was there in 1991. And I was actually in the Army at the time. I did 6 in the Army, got out, went in the Coast Guard for 15. But the missiles, I was actually in a Patriot missile battalion, and we were shooting Scuds down over there at that time.
That's right. Yep.
So, all right. It was good to meet you, Keith. Keep me in mind if you have, people come across that can be connections, and I'll try to make it to class on time.
Well, Patrick, I don't know if you are, and Keith may know more about this than I do. Is Tom Looney driving me crazy about the Carolina Coastal Federation? That he's asking me to get involved with that. They're the guys behind the Oyster Trail, and a whole bunch of this kind of stuff. So I don't know anything about them other than that, and whether that's worth joining or being part of it in some way. It seems like a lot of stuff happening. They've got researchers there. They've got people that seem to know what they're doing, and I'm assuming over time I'm going to get to know them, because what we're trying to do right now offline is we're trying to build a marketplace for the oystermen to sell their oysters online, as well as logoed merchandise and that kind of stuff. And that will be a market that's hosted at the Coastal Federation. And these guys will be able, all 38 of them will be able to, use it to get their products to market. So we'll see. It's a big hairball. I'm not quite sure we're going to be able to pull it off.
So let me just plant this seed since you mentioned that. And I think the world of Tom. He's awesome.
Yeah.
But, and it's really not even a but. And remember that we have the Outer Banks campus now. ECU has put a stake in the ground in Wanchese at the Coastal Studies Institute. And it is still the UNC system Coastal Studies Institute, but ECU's permanent research footprint is growing. And it's all that do you know Reed?
No, I don't know. I'd love to get an introduction to those guys and maybe even go visit them. I've got a cousin that lives in that area, and so we go up there. And I keep saying to myself, "Man, I got to go see what ECU is doing." And I haven't done it, but I'd like to.
Well, I'll keep that in mind, and we'll make that connection. But if there was some way, and Reed is up to his eyeballs, like the budget cuts and all those things. He had a big strategic plan. He's just been trying to do what he can.
Yeah,
guy doing great things. If there's a way to put more ECU prominence there. If there's a connection you can make through the accelerator and ECU and coastal studies location, that to me would be an angle worth connecting on to get in Looney, closer in Looney's orbit.
Happy to do it. You probably know this, but they just raised $7.5 million to build a new headquarters for the Coastal Federation.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be in Wanchese. I think it's going to be in Morehead City.
Yeah.
But I think we can weave our way in there. I've mentioned ECU a couple times, got a little bit of, oh, well, we got this, type of thing. But I think that they are sufficiently impressed with our e-commerce knowledge and ability that right now I've got a little bit of runway. So I'll do my best to make sure we brand them properly.
Awesome.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you
All
so
right.
much for the time. Keith, you did a great